there, and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. If you're tuning in today, you're probably wondering how to win your first offer in a hot market. It can feel overwhelming, right?
Absolutely, Sarah. It's like a race sometimes, but with the right strategies, you can definitely find your footing.
Exactly. I'm really excited to dive into this with you, Mike. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and joining me is our resident real estate expert, Mike Reynolds.
Thanks, Sarah. Always great to be here, ready to share some insights.
So in today's episode, we're going to unpack some practical tips on how to navigate the competitive landscape of real estate, especially if you're looking to make that first purchase.
Right. We'll talk about things like understanding your budget, knowing what to look for in a property, and how to make your offer stand out.
And we can't forget about the importance of timing and a little bit of luck, too.
Yeah, definitely. It's a blend of preparation and seizing the right moment.
So if you're ready to take that leap into real estate investing, stick around. We've got some great advice lined up for you.
Let's get started. You know, Sarah, when we talk about winning your first offer in a hot market, it feels particularly crucial for those of us over 40. I mean, we're often thinking about retirement timelines, right?
Absolutely, Mike. It's like the clock is ticking, and many people want to secure that financial future sooner rather than later.
Exactly. I've seen many investors, especially in that age group, feeling the pressure with rising inflation and shifting market dynamics. They want to make smart decisions that not only protect their current assets, but also help them build wealth for the future.
Right. And with inflation being what it is, property has historically been a solid hedge against that. You know, I heard from a listener recently, someone in their early 50s, who felt like they missed the boat on investing. They were worried about rising prices and thought they should have started years ago.
That's a common feeling, but it's never too late to start. I remember an investor I worked with, let's call him Tom, who was in his late 40s and just starting to think seriously about property investment. He had a good job, but he was concerned about how to secure his retirement.
What did he do?
Well, Tom decided to jump into the market with a small rental property. He was nervous about making that first offer, especially in a hot market where everything was flying off the shelves. But he took the time to do his research and really understand the local market trends.
That's so important.
For sure. He found a property that was slightly undervalued because it needed some cosmetic work. You know, just a fresh coat of paint and new flooring. He was able to negotiate a good price, and it ended up being a fantastic investment.
Wow, that's great. So he didn't just jump in blindly. He really took the time to assess the situation.
Exactly, and that's key, especially for those of us who are a bit older and might be more risk-averse. It's about finding that balance between opportunity and caution.
And once he secured that property, how did it change things for him?
Well, it gave him a sense of security. You know, he could see a tangible asset that would appreciate over time. Plus, he started generating rental income, which helped him feel less anxious about retirement.
That's so empowering.
It really is. And it's not just about the financial side. There's that emotional aspect, too. Knowing you're making smart moves for your future and potentially for your family, right?
Right. I mean, many people are thinking about leaving a legacy or helping their kids with a down payment on a home.
Exactly. I've seen investors who have turned their first property into a multifamily unit over time, which not only helped them, but also provided support for their kids.
That's beautiful. So it's like planting a seed that grows over time.
Totally. And with the current economic trends, we're seeing people wanting to diversify their portfolios. With stock market volatility, real estate offers a more stable investment path.
Yes, and it's also a way to beat inflation. If you invest in a property that appreciates, you're essentially growing your wealth while keeping pace with rising costs.
Right, and for those over 40, it's all about maximizing what you have left before retirement. I mean, the closer you get, the more you want to ensure that your financial future is solid.
Exactly. And I think there's a sense of urgency for some people. They see property values rising and feel like they should act now, but they might be unsure where to start.
That's a good point. It can be really overwhelming, but it's also about mindset, shifting from fear of missing out to focusing on what you can control.
So true. It's about taking that first step.
Right. And sometimes that first step is just educating yourself about the market, maybe attending local meetups or webinars, or even listening to podcasts like this one.
Definitely. And I think hearing stories from others can make it feel more relatable, like Tom's story. It shows that it's possible, even if you're starting later in life.
Absolutely. I often tell people to look for mentors or peers who are doing what they want to do. It's inspiring to see others succeed, especially when you can relate to their journey.
And it's also about building that network, right?
Yes, networking is crucial. You never know when a connection might lead to a great deal. I've had investors find off-market properties just through conversations at local networking events.
Wow, that's a great tip. So it's not just about the properties themselves, but also about the relationships you build along the way.
Exactly. And as we start to transition into discussing core strategies, remember that being proactive, staying informed, and connecting with others can make a huge difference in a hot market.
I can't wait to dive into those strategies, Mike. It feels like there's so much potential out there for those willing to take that leap.
So let's dive into some of those core strategies that can really help you win your first offer, especially in a hot market.
Yeah, definitely. Where do you think we should start?
Well, I think the first thing to consider is the 1% rule. It's a great rule of thumb for evaluating rental properties. Essentially, you want to aim for the property to generate at least 1% of its purchase price in monthly rent. So if you're looking at a house that costs, say, $300,000, you'd want it to rent for around $3,000 a month.
That makes sense. And if it doesn't meet that threshold, it might not be a good investment.
Exactly. If you're not hitting that 1% mark, you might need to reconsider or look for properties that need a little more work, which could potentially increase the rent.
Right, and that brings us to the next strategy, the 50% rule. Can you explain that one?
Sure. The 50% rule is a quick way to estimate your expenses. The idea is that about 50% of your rental income will go towards operating expenses. So if you're renting that $300,000 property for $3,000 a month, you should budget for about $500 in expenses.
That's a useful way to quickly assess cash flow. So if your income is $3,000 and you're spending $500 on expenses, what does that leave you with?
Well, you'd have $500 left over. But remember, you also have to account for your mortgage payment. Let's say your mortgage on that property is $200 a month. So after expenses, you'd be left with $300 in cash flow.
So it's important to keep an eye on that cash flow, right?
Absolutely. Positive cash flow is critical for building wealth over time. You want to make sure your investment is not just breaking even, but actually generating some profit.
And what about cap rates? I've heard that term thrown around a lot.
Ah, yes. The cap rate is another important metric. It's calculated by taking the net operating income of the property and dividing it by the current market value or purchase price. So if your property generates $18,000 a year in net income and you bought it for $300,000, your cap rate would be 6%, which is calculated like this: $18,000 divided by $300,000.
Got it. So a higher cap rate generally means a better return, right?
Exactly. A cap rate of 8% or above is often considered good in real estate. But remember, you also want to consider the location and the market conditions. A property with a lower cap rate in a desirable area might still be a better investment than one with a higher cap rate in a less desirable area.
That's a great point. So what about evaluating deals? Do you have a checklist that you follow?
Yes, definitely. I always recommend having a checklist to evaluate properties. Start with location. Look for growth potential, amenities, schools, and access to public transport. Then assess the property condition. Is it move-in ready, or does it need significant repairs?
And I suppose you should also look at the numbers, right?
Exactly. Check the purchase price, projected rental income, estimated expenses, and financing options. You should also consider the exit strategy. What's your plan if you want to sell in the future?
Speaking of financing, what options do investors typically have?
There are several avenues. Traditional mortgages are common, but you could also look into hard money loans if you're flipping properties. They usually come with higher interest rates, but can be a quick way to get funding.
And what about private lenders? I've heard that's becoming more popular.
Yes, private lenders can be a great resource, especially if you have a solid relationship with someone who understands the market. They can often provide faster funding and more flexible terms than traditional banks.
That's good to know. So what types of properties do you think are best for new investors?
Single-family homes are usually a good starting point. They're often easier to understand and manage. But you might also consider small, multi-family units like duplexes or triplexes because they can provide multiple streams of income.
And what about the market itself? Should investors focus on specific areas?
Yes, definitely look for emerging markets, areas that are experiencing growth, whether it's due to new developments, job opportunities, or improved infrastructure. You can often find better deals in these areas before they become saturated.
It sounds like doing your homework is really key.
Absolutely. Market research is crucial. You want to know what's happening in the area you're considering. Tools like local real estate reports, online databases, and even talking to local real estate agents can be really helpful.
And what's the best way to make your offer stand out in a competitive market?
Well, one way is to get pre-approved for a mortgage before making an offer. This shows sellers you're serious and financially capable. You might also want to consider including an escalation clause, which allows you to automatically increase your offer if another buyer bids higher.
Those are smart strategies. It's all about being proactive and prepared, right?
Exactly. And don't forget to build a good relationship with the seller's agent. Sometimes, a personal touch can make all the difference, whether it's a heartfelt letter or just being flexible on closing dates.
That's really interesting. So now that we've covered some solid strategies, what are some common pitfalls that new investors should watch out for?
Well, one of the biggest pitfalls is underestimating costs. Many first-time investors only think about the purchase price and forget about repairs, maintenance, and vacancies.
That's so true. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement.
Definitely. And another mistake is not having a solid plan or exit strategy. You really want to know what your goals are and how you'll achieve them.
That's great advice, Mike. I think having a clear direction is so important, especially in a hot market like this.
Absolutely. And remember, patience is key. Sometimes the best deals come when you least expect them.
Thanks for sharing these insights. I think our listeners will find this really helpful as they navigate their first investments.
You know, Sarah, one of the biggest pitfalls I see with new investors in a hot market is over-leveraging. They get excited about the potential returns and think, if I can just stretch a little more, I'll get a better property. But that can really backfire.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like they're trying to ride the wave, but then they end up drowning.
Exactly. I had a client once. Let's call him Tom. He found a great property, but instead of putting down a solid deposit, he maxed out his mortgage. He thought he could flip it quickly and cash in. But then, the market shifted just a bit, and he was left holding the bag, struggling to make mortgage payments.
Ouch. That's a tough lesson. So it's really about understanding your limits, right?
Absolutely. It's crucial to have a solid financial cushion. You don't want to put yourself in a position where any little hiccup in the market puts you in a bind.
Right. I think that's a perfect transition to another common mistake: bad tenants. I mean, not everyone thinks about tenant screening when they're excited about purchasing a property.
You're spot on. I had another client, let's call her Lisa. She was so eager to get her first rental property that she skipped the tenant screening process. She just wanted to fill the space fast. Unfortunately, she ended up with a tenant who didn't pay rent on time, and then there were issues with property damage.
That's frustrating. It sounds like she may have been in a hurry to see cash flow coming in.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You want cash flow, but rushing into a tenant situation can cost you more in the long run. I always tell my clients to take the time to do thorough background checks, check references, and even meet potential tenants if possible.
Yeah, it's like dating, right? You wouldn't rush into a relationship without knowing the person.
Ha! That's a great analogy. And speaking of cash flow, ignoring it is another common pitfall. Some investors get so caught up in the initial excitement of acquiring a property that they forget to calculate the ongoing costs.
Like property taxes, maintenance, and all those hidden fees?
Exactly. I remember one investor who bought a property in a hot area thinking he'd make a killing. But after factoring in taxes, insurance, and unexpected repairs, his cash flow was nearly non-existent. He was shocked when he realized his profit margins were razor thin.
Wow, that's a wake-up call. How can someone avoid that?
Well, the key is to run the numbers thoroughly before you buy. I recommend creating a spreadsheet that includes all potential costs, not just the mortgage payment. And always leave a buffer for unexpected expenses.
That makes sense. It's like having an emergency fund for your investment, right?
Exactly. And another common mistake is trying to time the market. Many investors think they can buy low and sell high, waiting for the perfect moment.
Yeah, but isn't that a bit risky? The market can be unpredictable.
It really is. I had a client who waited for what he thought was the perfect time to buy. He kept saying he'd wait for prices to drop, but by the time he decided to make a move, prices had gone up even more. He ended up missing out on a great opportunity just because he was waiting for the ideal moment.
So it's better to focus on finding a good deal rather than trying to predict market trends?
Exactly. It's all about finding a property that meets your long-term goals, regardless of the market condition. If the numbers work, then go for it.
That's great advice. I can see how being overly cautious can lead to missed opportunities.
Right, and then we can't ignore hidden costs. Many new investors overlook things like closing costs, repairs, and even property management fees. They might think they'll just manage the property themselves, but then life gets in the way.
Oh, that's so true. I've heard stories of people who thought they could handle everything, only to realize they were overwhelmed.
Yeah, I had a friend who bought a duplex with plans to live in one unit and rent out the other. He didn't budget for repairs or the time it would take to manage the property. He ended up spending every weekend fixing things instead of enjoying his new home.
That's a bummer. It sounds like he was setting himself up for stress rather than success.
Exactly. It's important to consider what you can realistically manage. If you're not prepared to be a hands-on landlord, maybe hiring a property manager is worth it.
So what are some red flags investors should watch for early on?
Great question. One major red flag is if a property has been on the market for a long time. You have to ask yourself why. Is it overpriced? Are there major issues?
That makes sense.
And also, look for signs of neglect. If the property needs a lot of repairs or if the previous owner seems to have cut corners, that can be a big warning sign.
Right, and sometimes you can get a gut feeling about a place, too.
Absolutely. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
So, what's the best way to recover from these pitfalls if you find yourself in one?
Well, first, don't panic. Take a step back, evaluate your situation, and learn from it. If you've over-leveraged, consider talking to a financial advisor about restructuring your loans. For tenant issues, you can always start the eviction process if necessary, but make sure you follow the local laws.
And for those hidden costs, I guess it's never too late to reassess your budget and plan for the future?
Exactly. Just remember, every mistake is a learning opportunity. The key is to adapt, reevaluate, and keep moving forward.
That's a great mindset to have. It sounds like the journey of real estate investing is all about learning and growing, huh?
Absolutely. And with the right approach, you can turn those challenges into stepping stones for future success. So, okay, let's dive into some immediate steps that our listeners can take right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about getting started, right?
Exactly. First off, I think one of the most practical things people can do is to set a goal to analyze at least one deal per week.
One deal a week? That sounds totally doable.
Right? It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just pick a property, do some research, and run the numbers.
What tools do you recommend for that?
Well, there are a few great apps out there. For example, Zillow is fantastic for checking property values and getting an idea of what's on the market.
Yeah, I love Zillow. It's so user-friendly.
Exactly. And then there's the Bigger Pockets calculator, which is really useful for analyzing cash flow, ROI, and all that good stuff.
Oh, I've heard about that one. It can help you see if a deal makes sense financially, right?
Absolutely. And if you're looking at rental properties, the Rent-O-Meter tool can help you compare rental rates to see if you're pricing your property right.
That's a great point. And you mentioned local MLS access earlier.
Yes. If you can get access to your local multiple listing service, that's a game changer. You can see the most accurate data on properties.
So it sounds like having the right tools is crucial. What about some resources like books or podcasts?
Oh, definitely. Some good books to check out are The Book on Rental Property Investing by Brandon Turner and Real Estate Investing for Dummies. They lay out the basics really well.
Those are solid recommendations. What about podcasts?
BiggerPockets podcast is a must-listen. They cover so many different aspects of real estate investing with real-life stories.
Sounds inspiring. I think hearing those success stories can really motivate people.
For sure. And let's not forget about joining local meetups or real estate investing groups.
Yeah, connecting with others can be such a boost.
Exactly. You can learn from others, experiences, ask questions, and maybe even find a mentor.
That personal touch can really make a difference, especially when you're starting out.
Right, and starting small is key. You don't have to jump into a big investment right away.
So, maybe even just focusing on a single-family home or a duplex to begin with?
Yes, one step at a time. You might find that investing in a smaller property first helps you build confidence.
And then you can scale up to bigger projects as you get more comfortable.
Exactly. It's all about building your knowledge base and experience gradually.
What about setting up some habits? Any suggestions?
Definitely. Start by dedicating a specific time each week to your real estate education, whether that's reading, listening to a podcast, or analyzing deals.
I love that idea. Consistency really helps you build momentum.
For sure. And maybe try to follow real estate news. Understand what's happening in your local market.
That's smart. Staying informed can help you spot opportunities before they become mainstream.
Right. And don't forget to network online too. Social media platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook have groups where investors share insights and opportunities.
That's a great way to connect with like-minded people.
Exactly. And remember, even if you start with just a small goal, each step you take builds toward your larger vision.
It can feel overwhelming at first, but breaking it down makes it manageable.
Yes. So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together. So as we wrap things up, let's hit some key takeaways from our conversation about winning your first offer in a hot market.
Yeah, definitely. One major point we discussed was the importance of being pre-approved for financing. It really gives you a leg up, right?
Exactly. It shows sellers you're serious and ready to go. Plus, knowing your budget helps you make quicker decisions.
And then there's the significance of understanding the local market. Knowing what's hot and what isn't can really guide your offer strategy.
Right. And don't forget about the power of a personal touch in your offer. You know, a heartfelt letter or something that connects you to the property can make a difference.
Oh, for sure. That personal connection can really resonate with sellers. They want to know their home is going to someone who appreciates it.
And lastly, being flexible with your terms can really work in your favor. If you can accommodate the seller's timeline or needs, it might just tip the scales in your favor.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, remember that building wealth through real estate is a journey, and every step you take gets you closer to your goals.
Exactly. It's all about persistence and learning along the way. Don't get discouraged. Every setback is just a setup for a comeback.
And speaking of comebacks, if you found this episode helpful, please like, subscribe, and let us know your biggest takeaway or any questions you have in the comments.
And, hey, if you know someone over 40 who's looking to invest in property, share this episode with them. It might just spark their interest.
Yes. And, next time we're diving into what to do after your offer is accepted. That's going to be super valuable.
Can't wait for that conversation.
Thanks for joining us today. Catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.